So welcome back. In the last video, we have discussed the disjoint union data structure, whereas we have seen how to implement disjoint in order 1 but union in order log n on average. In this video, we are going to do a different implementation where we are going to achieve the union in order 1 but the disjoint in order 1 amortized cost. Okay, this is the most efficient way of implementing this, and so we will use this data structure in implementing the Kruskal algorithm. So in this video we are going to revisit disjoint union data structure. We will try to see how to do both the disjoint as well as the union operation in constant time. Just to recall, in the disjoint union data set we had a universal set numbered from 0 to n minus 1. Then we had a make set operation which creates n singles on disjoint sets. Then we had two important operations to be done on this subset of U, disjoint subsets of U. Given I comma j, we wanted to know the disjoint operation will inform us whether I and j will be in the same set or a different set. Union of I comma j, you will take two sets containing I comma j respectively and replace these two sets with the union of these two sets. In the previous class, we have seen an implementation where the disjoint can be answered in order 1, but the union, n union took n into log of n. In other words, each union will take log n in order n time. In this class, what we are going to do is that we will see how to implement disjoint and union in constant time. More specifically, we will see how to do union in order 1 and disjoint in order 1 amortized cost. So before you come to order 1 amortized cost, we will see how to do disjoint in order log n. Earlier we did the disjoint in order 1, union in order log n on average. Here we are going to see first union in order 1 but disjoint in order log n. Then we will improve this order log n to order 1 amortized cost. The idea here is to use these sets as rooted trees. Initially we have singleton trees. The parent of each node is pointing to itself, right? So when every parent is pointing to itself, that's an indication that it's a root node. So now when you the root of a tree is the representative for all the elements in the tree. See, if you have to tell us which is the set to which an element belongs to, what you do is that you keep going to the parent till you reach the parent pointer and report the parent pointer. So the coloring business here in the earlier example is exactly same as reporting the root. Let's see an example to begin with how this actually works. Now all the nodes are singleton nodes, all of them are roots. That means that the parent pointer, each of them is pointing to itself. Now I want to find the union of 1 comma 2. So when union of 1 comma 2 is done, so the sub 2 becomes the child of 1. When I do the union of 3 comma 4, 4 becomes the child of 1. So the diagram will look like this. Parent of 2 is 1, parent of 4 is 1. So if you ask me what is the set to which 2 actually belongs to, I'll report the leader of the set, which is essentially the root of the subtree to which 2 actually belongs to. That is 1. So if I say find 4, that means find to which set actually belongs to. The find function will tell me the root of the subtree to which 4 actually belongs to. The root of the subtree to which 4 belongs to is 3. Root of the subtree to which 2 belongs to is 1. If I give you two nodes which belong to the same subtree, that means that they are in the same set. Okay, so when you keep going up and report the root node, all the nodes in the same subtree will report the same root node. So 1 and 2 are in the same set, 3 and 4 are in the same set. Let's find the union of 0 comma 2. So when I did the union of 0 comma 2, 2 will become the child of 1, right? So the diagram will look like this. Now if I want to find the union of 4 comma 2, the bigger set is merged with the smaller set. So 3 comma 4 becomes the child of 4 comma 1. So if you ask me what is the set to which 4 actually belongs to, keep going. I start with 4, I go to the parent pointer, that's 3. From there I go to the parent pointer, I'll report that I belong to the set 1. Now all the elements will belong to only one set, because root of all the nodes here is rooted at 1. So we have only one set. Okay. So in this representation, what we are going to do is that all the sets, if you look at any set that is represented through a tree where every node is given its parent pointer, and the representative for this particular set is the root of the subtree. When I ask you the question, what is the root to which an element belongs to, what is supposed to return is the root of the subtree to which it actually belongs to. Let's look at the minimum. Let's look at the minimum make site. So for all, for in the beginning, I make all the single sentence. That is parent of I is equal to I itself. Now, if you want to find, ask me. So find returns the root of the subtree, right? So if so how will I find? So find essentially if a parent of I itself is I, that means that this itself is a root. Otherwise, return the find of the parent I. Recursively, this function find of I will returns the root of the subtree. So once you have the find function, the disjoint I comma j, I and j belong to the same set if and only if they belong to the same subtree. So when I cast the find of I, it will return me the root of the subtree to which it actually belongs to. When I call find of j, it will return the root of the subtree to which j belongs to. If both of them return the same, that means that they are in the same set, same subtree. So it's easy to find disjoint of I comma j. What you need to do is to just call the find function, which will tell you, which will return the root of the subtree to which it actually belongs to. So the union is a little tricky here. There are two kinds of unions that we're going to talk about, union by rank and union by height. So when I look at I comma j, so the subtree with the fewer number of nodes becomes the child of the subtree having more number of nodes. If you want to find the union, so this is one, this is a one subtree which is a one set, this is another subset. So what you want to do is that you want to merge these two sets and make it as one set, which is in our tree representation you are going to make one as the child of the other one. So instead of two children, two seed trees, now will have only one side. So what we are saying is that if you have to merge two trees, make the smaller size, the number of nodes in the subtree as the smaller size as the subtree of the bigger side. This is union by rank. So the union by height is the same example. So the node with the lesser height will become the child of the node with the bigger height. So if I have to implement all this, when you have to do the make site, this will give me the pi. This will help me in telling the find function. The size of I is 1 itself and the height of a singleton node is 0. Now when I want to do the union by rank, assuming that S of I is greater than S of j, otherwise I'll just swap I and j. If S of I is greater than S of j, so what we are doing, we are making the smaller one as the child of the bigger one, which is equivalent to saying just updating the parent pointer of j to be I, and setting the S of I is equal to this subtree will contain all the elements that were there in the subtree containing S of I plus all the nodes which are there in the subtree which has been merged with this, which is C of S of j, the subtree which contains the jth element. So this will ensure that the S is updated because the tree containing j has been merged with the tree containing the node I, element I, and I still continues to be the root and j will start pointing to I. Exactly the similar stuff can be done for the union by height. I check whether the height of I is greater than height of j. In that case, j becomes the child of I. So the parent pointer of I is set as parent point of j is set as I is the root, j is the child. So parent point of j is set as I. So if this condition is not true, I am going to make the I as the child of j. So the parent of I will be set as j. Remember, when height of I is equal to height of j, so this else is what is done. So I is still the root of the node. So if height of I is equal to height of j has become the child of I. So height of I after this merge operation will increase by 1. So I appropriately update the height. So in all our discussions, we have been assuming that the union is called only after you call disjoint, and so even when you after you call the disjoint, if they are in two different sites, only then you call the union, right? So that is the assumption that is there when you talk about the time complexity of union. So we don't account for the checking whether A is not equal to B is accounted in the time complexity of discussing a disjoint. If A is not equal to B, that means that they are in two different sites, only then you are going to you find the union of them. If A is equal to B, that means that both of them are in the same site. In that case, you don't do anything. So here we are not charging the cost of find of I and find of j to the union function. It is being charged for the disjoint function. So if your application, so that's precisely what happened in the case of Kruskal. You check whether two connected components, whether an edge goes across, that is the disjoint. Only if they go across, then you add it. So the checking is being charged for disjoint, and adding that edge and merging the connected components is being charged to the union. If the application doesn't necessarily call disjoint before you call the union, then the complexity of union will be equal to the complexity of find and plus the union that we are doing. So in our assumption, the charge for finding is accounted in J star, and when you call the union function, we assume that we are directly given the roots of the subtree which needs to be merged. Okay, so this is an important thing to remember. I repeat, when you are given union, you are given the roots of the subtree to be merged, not the actual elements. You first find the root of the subtree to which it actually belongs to. Find the similarly for j, b be the subtree to which it actually belongs to, and these two are in two different subtrees. Only then you are going to merge it. So the finding whether they belong to same or not is being we call it as the disjoint function. After that, merging is given to roots of the subtree after you decided that these two are disjoint subsets is our union function. It's easy to see that each union is order 1 because in whether it's a union by rank or union by size, we just compare the size of the two sets. Make the smaller tree has the subtree of the bigger tree, or if the by height, then whichever subtree has the smaller height, make it as the child of the other one which has the higher rank. So this is order 1 operation, but if you want to do disjoint, then we said that we have to call twice to the find function. The find function will keep going up to the root, and it will start with the node, and you keep following the parent pointer and reach the only when it reaches the root node, it will return the root pointer, root node. So every node, when you call the find function, it will return the root of the subtree to which it actually belongs to. So it has to travel from its position, keep going up every time, and only when it reaches the root, it will return that pointer. This each find operation is order h, where h is the height of the tree. So we want to show that the height of the tree in both the cases, in the union by rank or the union by height, is going to be order h. Let's look at the union by rank first. Union by rank is also known as union by size. So we can think of color changes as the root of the color of a node as the root of the subtree, right? So in the previous analogy that we have done earlier, so every node undergoes a color change. When a node goes under color change, so the root of the all the elements in the subtree actually changes. Now if you want to understand how many times the number of you have changed the color of a node, which is exactly equal to the number of times that you are so the height of the tree will be exactly equal to maximum number of times a node has gone changed its color. See, every time when a node's color changes, the root of the parent pointer of that changes. That means that the root of the subtree for all the elements in this subtree actually changes. So every time when a color change happens for all these elements, the height of the subtree will increase by 1. So the maximum height of the tree will be exactly equal to the maximum number of times a particular node undergoes color change. So we will just go through the previous proof because we know that every node in the graph can undergo color changes at most log of n number of times. Just to quickly recap the previous theorem, if an element has changed its color k number of times, the size of the set to which it actually belongs to is 2 to the power k. So if k is 0, it's equal to the size of the set to which it actually belongs to is 1. And so if it is going color change k plus 1 time, that means that it has already undergone color changes k minus 1 number of times. So the size of the set to which it actually belongs to is 2 to the power k minus 1, and this is going to be merged with the set which is which is bigger than this. So that will obviously have more than 2 to the power k minus 1 number of elements. So the size of the set to which it actually belongs to will be 2 to the power k minus 1 plus 2 to the power k minus 1, which is by induction, which is greater than or equal to 2 to the power k. Since the maximum number of times a node can change its color is at most log of n from this also implies that every time, just notice that every time when the color of a node changes, which means that the parent node, the root of a subtree actually changes, the height of the subtree will increase by 1. Okay, so will increase by 1. So the maximum height of the subtree will be at most log of n, right? So the every time when you change, so if you want to increase the height, so let's say that the h is the height of the subtree. So when you want to increase the height by 1, you have to add a subtree to the tree, right? So that means you have to change parent pointer of one of the nodes. So, but you know that the number of changes times the color changes can happen is only order log n. That means that the height of the subtree cannot be more than order log n. So similarly, we can prove in the other case where we do by union also by a similar argument. In this case, we are going to show that a tree with height h will have at least 2 to the power h number of nodes. Again, proof is by induction. If h is 0, then the tree has only one node. If the height increases, the height of a node increases only when the height of both the trees that are going to be merged have the same height. So if both the trees have same height, by induction, by h minus 1, both the trees will have at least h minus 1 number of nodes by induction. So after you merge these two nodes, so the height of the tree becomes h, and you have 2 to the power h number of elements. If when you do the merge, if the height doesn't change, okay, then only the number of nodes in the subtree will increase. Before the merge, if the number of nodes is at least 2 to the power h, after the merge, the number of nodes in the subtree will only increase. So after you merge the two trees, the height of, if the height is h, then the number of nodes is going to be greater than 2 to the power h. I repeat, if the height changes, only if the height of the subtrees are exactly equal to h minus 1. In that case, by induction, both the trees should have 2 to the power h minus 1, at least 2 to the power h minus 1 number of elements. So after you merge, the height of the tree becomes h, and the number of nodes in the subtree will be 2 to the power h. When you merge two nodes, if two subtrees, if the height doesn't change, then so before the merge the height was h, so already there was 2 to the power h minus 1 number of elements. After you merge two elements, the number of elements has only increased by some amount, but the height has not changed. Before the merge itself, if there were 2 to the power h number of elements, it can only increase the number of elements. So so this concludes the proof that a tree with h will have at least 2 to the power h number of nodes. So no tree can have more than log of n number of height. Height cannot be more than log of n, because if you take any tree with height h, then it should contain at least 2 to the power h 2 to the power log n, which is more than log of n number of elements. So since we are maintaining disjoint sets, no tree will have more than log of n number of elements. So in both the cases, whether you do union by rank or union by height, the height of the tree will be at most log of n. So when you do the find operation, you will traverse from your node to the root node. So the number of comparisons, the number of times you go up is going to be at most order log n. So by time complexity, union is just merging two trees, making one as a child of the other one. In this case, you are essentially changing the parent pointer of one of the nodes, which is a constant time operation. And when you want to do disjoint operation, you are just finding the root of the subtrees to which these two elements belongs to. So both of them will take at most order log n, because each of the subtrees that you have will have height at most log of n. So we know how to implement disjoint in order log n and union in order 1. So when you do the find operation, we will do little more than what is required. Let's say that I want to find 4. So what our find algorithm does is that it goes to 3, from 3 it goes to 2, 2 it goes to 1, and 1 is the root of the subtree, so it will return 1. So during this process, so what we are going to do is that we are going to cut all the nodes that I am going to visit, and the subtree will be attached to 1, right? So the subtree will be attached to the root of the subtree. All the nodes that I am going to visit along this path will be cut, and so all of them will be pointing to the root. In other words, the parent pointer of 1 will be set as 1, parent pointer of 3 will be set as 1, parent pointer 2 also will be set as 1, and when you reach the root node, you stop, right? So you anyway traverse along this path. When you traverse along this path, change the parent pointer of all these nodes to 1, so that if you want to find, so all these nodes belong to the same set. In future, if you want to know which is the set to which 2 actually belongs to, then it is closer to the root node. It's easy to answer in future. Okay, this method is called path compression. So when you do the find operation, so if you are going from T1, then you are going to backward Tk minus 1, T3, T2, and finally T1 is the root. So when you do this operation, so what you do is that along this path you cut all of them, make the parent pointer of each of them to be the parent pointer of Tf1. So all this will point to the root directly. So this method is called the path compression. This is easy to implement when you do the find itself. So if the P of I is equal to I, then its root, you return I. Else you find the P of I, find the root of P of I, and whatever is the root of P of I, set that as the parent pointer of the ith node. I repeat, find the P of I. So this will give you the root of the parent pointer, root of the subtree. Set the P of I to be that node. So this is the root. So P of I will be set as the root node. See, every node that you are going to visit along this path, all of them will be cut and made it as directly. It will become the child of the root node. So if you do this operation, so what we can say is that one find could be costly because the height of the tree is log n, but so you're going to cut all this and add it to the root, make it as a direct child of 1. So as in the example of the previous ones, now if you want to search for any node in T4, T2 is you can traverse from here to here. Once you reach there, you directly have to point to this. So the number of comparisons that you're going to do in future will be much smaller than so what you do without path compression. Right, so if you don't do compression from T of 4, if there is a node here, you have to go all the way around from here. But once you reach the root of this node, you can directly reach the parent point. So the path to the root node will decrease considerably by doing this operation, but this will not add any additional complexity to our find algorithm. Right. So the find algorithm just is that I have to remember that P of I is equal to find of P of I and return this node. Right. That's all. Earlier I was just returning find of P of I. Now I have to set P of I to find P of I and return this number. Okay. So with this, what we are going to say is that disjoint instead of order log n, it will take alpha into n amortized cost, where alpha n is called a inverse Ackermann function. So let's not worry too much about this function. So what is known about this function is that alpha n will be smaller than 4 if n is smaller than 10 to the power 600. Okay, so as long as we deal with reasonable size graphs, that means the sets which are smaller than 10 to the power 600, for all practical purposes alpha n is going to be constant, is less than 4. Okay, but this is only amortized. Okay, so the proof is not simple, though we are not going to get into the proof of this. Union is as before, it's order 1, but the disjoint, each of the operation will be order alpha n amortized cost, where alpha n for all practical purposes is a constant. So what we have is disjoint operation is going to be order 1 amortized cost. Union is anyway, in worst case, is also order 1. So the Kruskal makes m calls to disjoint and n minus 1 calls to the union. So the total amount of time that is going to take for m calls to disjoint union and n minus 1 union calls is order n plus m. So the total complexity of the Kruskal, if you implement this way, and it will be order m into log of n plus m plus n for the second part. M into log of n is for sorting, but deciding whether an edge goes across the connected component, or if it goes across the connected component, adding into the MST, doing all this will take only m plus n time using the path compression disjoint union data structure. You know how to implement it, but you don't know why the proof, why the amortized cost of order 1 disjoint is order 1, but we will take it for granted. And when we want to implement Kruskal, it's always better to use the path compressed version of the disjoint union data structure, which will help us to do disjoint in order 1, but union in also in order 1. So in the last two videos we discussed the disjoint union data structure, and then we have seen if I have to do m disjoint and n unions, so we know how to do it in order n plus m. So if you use this data structure called the path compression version of the disjoint union data structure, after we sort in m into log of n time, then deciding whether each of these edges belongs to the same connected component or different connected component, and if they happens to be in two different connected components, adding this edge to the MST and merging the two connected components, all these operations can be done efficiently in order n plus m time. So that's the story of Kruskal, and the time complexity of Kruskal is same as the Prims. In the case of Prims, if you want to use, you know that you have to have the implementation of priority queues, and if you want to implement Kruskals, you need the implementation of the data structure, disjoint union data structure. So depending on which one you are comfortable with, you can either use Prim's algorithm or Kruskal's algorithm in practice. So both of them come under the category of greedy algorithms. So we have omitted the proof of both the correctness of this algorithm in this course. We will come back to the proof probably sometimes later in some future videos. So immediately in the next video we'll come back to some properties of minimum spanning tree and maximum spanning tree, and we will look at so if you have the minimum spanning tree of a graph which is already computed, how efficiently can you update the MST if edge weight of one of the nodes increases or decreases, or you may want to, the graph itself may be dynamic, you may be adding some edge to the graph, or you may be deleting some edge from the graph, right? In that case, how quickly can these changes happen? How can you quickly update your minimum or maximum spanning trees? So this is what we are going to look at in the next class.